Creativity is just your ability as a human to come up with ideas and then put them into action.
You have this ability to make phenomenal pictures and to show people how amazing they are as people. That is the gift, and it's pretty special.
For a lot of us, we just aim too low with those intentions. We say, I want to travel, or I want to make X amount of money. And those things are usually pretty attainable to some point. And once we get there, what happens next?
One of the most liberating things as an artist is to remind yourself that you don't have to please everybody. Once you give yourself permission to not have to please everybody, then you can start creating without fear.
With basically anything, there's the art of it, and then there's the business side of it, the logistics of it, the structure of it.
Your excitement is like a compass, and it points you in a certain direction. And when you walk or run in that direction, life seems to just align itself.
Hello, creatives. Welcome back to the Art Creative Podcast. This podcast is all about digging into the minds of creatives, understanding their stories, digging into their creativity, and learning a little bit more about what motivates and inspires them to create so that we can take action to create ourselves. We hope to inspire you to become better artists and entrepreneurs by learning from the best of the best in the arts and business. We discuss everything from setting up systems to allow you to become more creative, how to find captivating stories in your own backyard, why you need to be taking intentional risks, all the way to how to build a signature brand and how to improve your productivity and life. I'm your host, Sachin, Khona, a wedding and portrait photographer and event organizer, and I absolutely appreciate you being here and tuning in with us. This episode is brought to you by the Experience Masterclasses. The masterclasses take place on Monday, October 22nd at various locations in Vancouver, BC. We have 10 speakers coming from all over the world teaching at the Experience, which is a 3-day conference happening from the 23rd to the 25th of October in Vancouver. And the masterclasses are really a chance for you to get exclusive training, learn insider techniques, and have your most pressing questions answered by our keynote speakers. If you're ready to dive deeper into your discipline and you value private, intimate learning environments, then this bonus day will be right up your alley. All you have to do is head to www.experience.thisisarc.co and follow the links for more information. My guest today is wedding photographer Catalina Jean. She's based out in Portland, Oregon, and specializes in capturing artistic portraits paired with unique storytelling moments to produce natural, emotional wedding photography. Catalina has been published in various blogs and magazines, including Green Wedding Shoes, Style Me Pretty, Rock and Roll Bride, and Junebug Weddings. Catalina continues to photograph and educate all over the planet, and we're just a few weeks away from the Experience, where Catalina will be presenting on all things SEO. Catalina is an SEO whiz and is consistently fully booked out for weddings every year and receives no less than 50 inquiries each month, out of which 70% of those inquiries come just from her organic SEO efforts. I'm excited to chat with her about all this and more. Welcome to the show, Catalina Jean.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
No worries. Thank you. So I just wanted to jump into a question right away. Jacob Loafman is also speaking at the Experience next month, and he told me to ask you about a mannequin.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Yeah.
What's the story? What's the story there?
Yeah. So Jacob Loafman is definitely one of my very first photography friends. We met, years ago. I had really just started, and he was still selling commercial lighting. And, he wasn't even photographing weddings really yet. And I flew out to St. Louis where he lives with a couple other friends. And we went to this retreat. But we did stay with him. And what Jacob used to practice with is with lighting and photography. He used to practice with this really kind of creepy mannequin in his basement. It was really creepy. So the friends that I was with, we were pretty instigator types. So he had left his house for a minute and we decided to all hide. And so he came back in and couldn't find us. And we had left various just ridiculous objects around his house. But we ended up also making some dating videos with this mannequin.
Okay.
And 2 a.m. making basically Tinder dating videos with this mannequin. And then we ended up breaking the mannequin. And then our friend Lena tried to take one of the arms through airport security and was stopped and had to explain why she had an arm in her suitcase.
Wow.
So this was definitely one of the very beginning memories of Jay and I's friendship. It kind of set the tone from there.
Oh, beautiful. I'm excited to see you both together next month. And yeah, we had Jacob on the show recently, and yeah, he was a speaker last year, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun having all you guys together. He also told me that you're quite into anime, film, and video games.
You shouldn't talk, Jacob. What are you saying about me? This is
hey, I want to know we want to know the real Catalina Jean.
We're getting real. This is already this is getting real. Yeah. So for a long time, I've really been into anime. I spent a lot of my high school and college years playing like MMORPGs and.
Whoa, what is that?
MMORPGs. It's basically like World of Warcraft.
Nice.
These mega nerdy games that you have to like dedicate your whole life to it to get anywhere. So I wasted many, many days and nights playing these games. But yeah, I've always for some reason been really drawn to anime, and yeah.
Sweet. But were they always
people know?
Like, well, a lot more people are going to know now, but like, was it always like where you are now? Sounds like you're doing pretty well. So what did you learn from that experience that is now feeding into your work?
Well, I mean, a big thing is I've just always kind of been a techie person. I was teaching myself how to just like write code. I'd do that for fun when maybe I was 14. And yeah, I just always loved computers and tech and things that were really, I don't know, I like difficult challenges and things to figure out. Like last year I built a supercomputer to run full immersion VR because I really wanted to check out what virtual reality was about. So yeah, so it's really fed into just liking difficult things. And I've always found, especially when we all start in photography, the camera is just alien. Like you just can't make it do what you want it to do. You have these things in your head, but you don't know how to actualize them. And I think that's bled into photography and just really, I kind of bite in and don't let go when it comes to learning. Yeah. And I think that's what drove a lot of learning SEO, a lot of just constantly shooting and practicing with light. But yeah, I think I've always I tend to like really get into things for a time and really like dig deep. And so I did that with video games and nerding out with anime and VR, and then now into like just photography and I just never was a creative, so it kind of surprised me that photography ended up being a thing. I always thought I would end up more in like economics or some sort of tech world, but yeah, ended up differently.
Wow, can you tell me more about this VR setup?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just like so curious.
Yeah. So the one I have is the Oculus Rift, and you have to have a certain level of computer to be able to run it. It needs a certain processing power. So yeah, and then you set up some. Well, my boyfriend made me take it down because he's like, honey, this looks horrible in the living room because I had all these sensors like literally screwed into the ceiling. He's like, this is terrible. You're taking over the house. But yeah, so you have to have these sensors because they actually track your hands and your movements, but you're almost able to completely enter worlds, and your mind starts to fill in the blanks. And so the controllers you have in your hand they stop feeling like controllers. They actually feel like you're grabbing and picking things up. And yeah, it's really neat. In there, I was able to like fly around in a car, and it feels really real. I was like flying through a city, and it even started affecting my dreams. I started dreaming about like being in VR, and it's just weird kind of what it does to your mind with being in like a different reality. So I was really, really impressed with it. It's not for the faint of heart, I will say. It's definitely like kind of a strain on your body. You can get motion sickness, and I'm not really selling it, but it was just really interesting. I just always, when there's some sort of new tech thing on the horizon, like VR or AI, I just kind of like to know, and it was neat to experience what that could be like, and also applications beyond just nerdy gamers like myself. But in there, you're able to like tour the White House, listen to interviews, like you're sitting across from someone who is a survivor of sex trafficking. Like you can really like get an immersive experience. Also, possibly into cultures. And if people who are maybe hospitalized, they could put on a VR headset and, and be able to kind of have a mental activity than just being stuck. So I don't know, there's some really cool, I want to do it not so much more of like, oh, I want a game. I was like, I want to try this and be an early adopter and see what, kind of try to think of the application so that when they are popping up in the world, it's just to be able to be like, oh yeah, I know what that is. So yeah, so I'm like kind of an ultra, just really nerdy person. So.
No, that's awesome. So, have you heard of the charity called Charity Water?
No.
It's created by Scott Harrison, and he spoke at a conference that I went to, actually in Portland, called World Domination Summit, WDS for short. And so it's like a non-profit organization that basically, I'm reading off of Google right now, by the way, that provides clean and safe drinking water to people in developing nations. And what they did was, I'd never experienced this before, but they wanted to give people an idea of how lucky we are to just turn on a tap and have safe drinking water, and what other people in other countries have to go through. So they created this virtual reality headset piece that you would put it on, and then you'd go to, like, I think it was in Ethiopia, where they had created a well, and you'd put on this headset and you'd just see what their living conditions were. You'd be able to speak to them, and then they would tell you how much they wanted water because somebody had interviewed them. Then, the timeline moved ahead, and there was a few months later, basically, and you could see these trucks come in, and then the water, basically, once they had created the well, it'd shoot out, and then you could like look up and around, and it was like the water was sort of falling on you. And
oh, cool. Yeah, that's exactly. Unreal. That's awesome. Like, what a cool way. It's one thing to tell a story or like show a video, but there's something that just like, I don't know, you're really kind of removing that separation where you're able to kind of be immersive in it. And like, what a wonderful use right there. Just to like be able to actually kind of be like, oh, wow, this is what it is like. And I think that, that's so connective. I love to hear that. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes you just, want to be a part of that organization and help them. And they do a thing where you can donate your birthday to Charity Water, I believe. And people can, instead of, getting somebody a gift, they can just donate money to that charity. So we'll add it in the show notes, but definitely check out charitywater.org.
Yeah, definitely will.
And so I've got one more question about VR, and then we will move on to...
I love it. This way, like in a completely different direction.
Yeah, why not?
I love it. Please shoot.
Great. So sometimes when I think about VR and AI, and this is probably common for other people as well, it may seem more like doom and gloom, that we're just getting so away from like actual reality because we're stuck to our phones, we're on like iPads and watching TV shows and things like that, and now we're going to this other realm of virtual reality. And AI has there's so much information about us already kind of being collected and being used in so many different ways. And so where do you kind of see the future going with VR and AI in the future from like a positive perspective?
Yeah, from a positive. I know there's a lot of negatives and doom and gloom and kind of like the sci-fi ending of a lot of these things, and they are a dual-edged sword. I mean, technology is here to stay, and we all are having to learn sort of a balance with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the positives I see was especially with things like VR. What I like is like these experiences, and that you're able to connect in deeper and see maybe a different side of the world that you might not have a chance to, or just like someone else's just life. Or what I also like is VR is very, very communal, actually. There are games and things that you play by yourself, but the really fun games, the ones I love, you're actually playing with other people. So I was playing this ultimate Frisbee game in there that's amazing. It's actually built off the arena from Ender's Game. So all the Ender's Games fans out there, you actually got to be in the arena. It was just like, Ender's Game. But I was playing, I'm playing at like 2 a.m. and I'm playing with a bunch of Australians, and we're just talking, and, the door's open and we, play our round. But yeah, it was kind of neat. And I had people on there like add me on Facebook. And I know there's been a lot of VR places popping up where you can go in person with your friends and play. Yeah. So I think that's kind of cool, even though it's tech. And same thing like that, I would argue, like, yes, we're on our phones and things, but most of my friends, like Jacob Loafman, don't live in Portland, and being able to FaceTime them and talk with them and keep up with their lives through things like Instagram stories. I love Instagram stories because that's just like all the unfiltered goodness. It's my favorite. Yeah, like I had my friend Larkin, she FaceTimed me last night. So that I love, because it is both something that can create a loneliness, but also a connectivity. And there's always that balance. With AI, I think there's a little more, some scariness there, just from some voices we should respect, like Stephen Hawking They have a lot of warnings on AI, but one of the most interesting things that I've seen develop is through IBM's AI called Watson. And Watson works with humans to basically be better. It's like augmented intelligence. So, for example, Watson can be used in doctors' offices to help diagnose diseases. There's over 500 new medical papers and journals that come out every day, and there's no way a human being can keep up with all that information. And that's where Watson comes in. So Watson will learn all that and help diagnose and give other possibilities and also maybe experimental treatments and recommendations. So in that way, it's not an AI taking over, it's kind of this fusion. So that I see is really, really exciting through, especially in the medical world, but also just in engineering, troubleshooting, mechanics for airplanes, things like that. Watson is really, really exciting. And I'd encourage anyone to go read on that. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it. I think I live in more the incitement than the doom and gloom and want to see, maybe I want to see the positives. But yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for sharing that. I really, really appreciate it. Cool. So I want to move on to SEO. I know your presentation is at ARC is obviously about SEO, and then you have an amazing masterclass where you'll like really dive into SEO for the attendees. And I believe SEO is so important, and I understand the value of it. But I wanted to like ask you the questions in like a really different way. So just kind of roll with me on this. But
sure, I'm into this. This is awesome. I love where this is going.
So imagine I'm like a 19-year-old kid and I've got 50,000 followers on Instagram and I have a photography business. So all my content is on Instagram. I use hashtags effectively. I connect with brides on Instagram. I've got the swipe up feature and everything is going great for me on Instagram. And well, a lot of my inquiries come from Instagram. Why should I spend time doing any SEO when clearly I'm killing it on Instagram?
And I think the big question is then what happens when Instagram is gone? One thing I love to, especially when my teaching has really developed and focused into SEO. I mean, it used to be overall marketing. I just really believe in not having all your eggs in one basket.
Totally.
I'm a big believer in all the eggs on all the baskets. So not even just, I really do. Like I am always playing with all these different weird just experiments and stuff that, some don't pan out, but some do. But yeah, I would even say like not just SEO, but just various marketing tactics and things to try. Because just in case, like even if Instagram doesn't like disappear, but say, as we know, their algorithm changes and it's owned by Facebook. And I don't trust Facebook. We all saw Facebook's really starting to teeter a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't really...
Yeah, there was just a kind of password scare.
Yes.
And hacking this week. And even in my own Facebook account, I was logged out of everything. And then I had to change my passwords and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And yeah, you're right. It is owned. They do own Instagram and WhatsApp.
Right.
And so many other things.
But yeah, so I don't really trust them because their algorithms, for me, some of them, I think that they're focused on bettering the experience of the user. I think most are trying to funnel people towards paying. We saw that a lot on our Facebook pages where all the interaction or the reach was just gone. And it's like, oh, but you can promote your post. And that promoting your post thing isn't, I do believe Facebook ads can be effective, but that promoting post thing is kind of just to suck your money. And it's not targeted. And I haven't used it in a little while because I was like, this is like your $20 is gone in, a few hours and you've got a couple more likes maybe. But yeah, I just don't trust their algorithm. And I do trust Google's algorithm updates. They have shown to just put a really clear balance and not even a balance. Their number one is their user experience. And that's why they're personally like, they're the top search engine. I always like to joke that the most searched term on Bing is Google. People are literally going to Bing and just typing in Google. I think it's the same thing too. Like a lot of us won't use the Maps app on iPhones. Well, I'll literally copy and paste an address and then like put it from the iPhone map into Google Maps because their maps is just better.
It's so much better.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, my long answer is, I think Instagram is great, but I don't think I would even be nervous if all of my inquiries, like all of them came from SEO efforts. And while a majority of them do, if for some reason, if there was some doom and gloom algorithm change that completely knocked me off, even that other 30%, because I get so many inquiries, would be enough to sustain my business.
Wow.
So I'm always playing with things. And I always consider a marketing chain successful if I can get, basically 1 to 3 bookings a year from it. But if I have 8 marketing chains going, 10 marketing chains going, that's solid. So that's definitely
pretty solid. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've built. Yeah. So that's what I would say to someone with Instagram.
Great.
I don't totally crap on it. I think it's great, but I see it as one marketing avenue. And there's just many others. So, yeah.
Totally. Well, one of my friends years ago said and her name's Anusha Lowe, and shout out to Anusha. She said, you've just got to be everywhere. And it's so true. You've got to, network with vendors and venues and, do the SEO, keep up with Facebook, Instagram, keep your relations going with, past brides even, and just kind of almost be everywhere, but do things as well as you can and maybe focus more heavily in the areas where you shine and where your skill set is.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's good advice too. I always tell people, sometimes people so want to improve the things they're bad at, where a lot of times I want to focus on the things I'm already good at and just get better. So, I'm not great with Instagram, but I found I was really good at SEO. So I was like, I'll fan the fire with, I'll post, I'll tag vendors, it just never really took off as an avenue for me. So, and I could have just really tried to dive in and it's just, I was like, I just couldn't really make sense of it. Just didn't really connect on there. But yeah, instead I started pushing into, and I think you should, of course, improve upon things, but I think you can get obsessed with, kind of raising up those things you might just not be amazing for you. But like SEO and tech stuff, I already have a strength there. Why don't I just pump that and get really, really good at that?
Totally. Okay. So we've been talking about SEO versus like Instagram and not putting all your eggs all in one basket. You have up to 300 inquiries already for the year. So, and a lot of them from SEO. So for anyone out there who doesn't know what SEO is, what does it stand for and why should somebody care about it?
It stands for search engine optimization, which I even kind of hate that word because it's like, because you're like, oh, wait, what? Like, it's kind of like, yes, it makes sense. You were basically optimizing for search engines. But one of the ways I love to talk about SEO is actually trying not to use all the techie terms. It's fun for me to learn them, but when I teach them, I think for businesses, it's like, okay, I want to say like, here's what you should know. You don't need to know everything about SEO. I like to because it's fun for me personally, but I'm like, okay, here's what's going to get you business, because I think that's what business owners care about. And my background is actually in working in the corporate world, and I learned that if I wanted to sell my project to a manager and get them on board, I needed to show ROI, so return on investment. And that's how I really like to come about with SEO and not just learn these techie things, but really applying to the business. So getting back to, search engine optimization. Basically, you are optimizing your website and your content for certain keywords in the search engines that will potentially bring you business. So that's kind of the long sort of answer of what search engine optimization means. And there's various ways to optimize your website. There's a lot of different angles to take everything from website speed to the actual written content, to some things in the back end that you enter in, like page titles and things like that. But yeah, it's really just, the big thing is coming up with the keywords your customers are searching for, and then doing everything to get on the page one of those keywords.
Okay, fantastic. So if somebody is about to shoot a wedding at a venue without, I know you're going to talk a lot about this at ARC. So I guess for somebody who is wanting to improve their SEO and they're about to shoot a wedding at a venue, or maybe they just shot a wedding on the weekend and now like they want to blog about it, share it on Instagram, Facebook, and the usual channels. Do you have any quick sort of tips and insights into how they can better optimize their next post or better be more optimized for search engines?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they put together a blog post and then think about SEO, and I do it the other way around. SEO is pretty much the main reason for a wedding photography blog, in my opinion, besides being, it's a portfolio piece. But I see each blog post as sort of an arrow to a target. And I think you first have to define your target. So I think a lot of people go, oh, well, I blog and I'm not showing. And it's like, well, what are you trying to show for? And that's kind of a funny thing, that a lot of times they can't answer that question. Or they'll say, oh, I'm trying to search for, my city, like Portland wedding photographer or something.
Sure.
Yeah. So with a blog post, I think I can say a few of the main problems I see is one is even if you do develop a good target keyword, and for blog posts, usually you want to like go after the venue, so say I shoot at Union Pine a lot. So, I might go after Union Pine wedding as sort of my target keyword. But then a lot of people I will see, they'll also enter in like, okay, so Union Pine wedding, and then they're like Portland wedding photographer, California wedding photographer. They add more targets, and you should only have one target for a blog post. Each blog post is a single target. The other thing I see is not, and I am guilty of this actually, because I'm actually going to hire a copywriter, but not having enough written content. Google really likes written content, at least 300 words. If you're trying to go for a really high competition keyword, it's more around like 2,000 to 2,200 words is kind of the optimal. So it's a lot of content. And if you're not good at writing, get a copywriter like me. I think I'm a little too much of a to the point person. So sort of writing with fluff, I'm like, it's a wedding, look at it. I don't know. It's just not my thing. So I'm going to hire a copywriter to help me out with that. But yeah, that's sort of some, just to kind of lightly go into it, because SEO it's one of those things that's incredibly easy. When I teach on it, I see a lot of eyes light up, but it's also incredibly difficult in that it has some nuanced things like keyword research and how to use that keyword properly. I mean, that's kind of a little more straightforward thing, but yeah, keyword research, choosing the right keywords, that's much more strategy and kind of you putting on your thinking cap, and there's not an app or anything that's going to tell you what the correct keyword is. So yeah, those are my two biggest problems I see is people kind of putting in too many random keywords or like text in there that isn't actually applicable to the wedding.
Yeah, and would Google penalize you for that?
Yes. Yeah, it definitely does now. They've released an update that focused on that. It was a couple of years ago. But yeah, they definitely penalize you. And it's because, again, Google is the best. And it's the best because it delivers the best content to its users. So your content better be actually applicable to what the keyword you're going for, or you're going to look spammy and Google's going to notice.
Okay, cool. And so how can someone use SEO for an opportunity that they would like to have? For example, when I moved from London to Vancouver and became a wedding photographer here, I didn't have any Vancouver venues or locations on my site. And I didn't want to put up like a British church and say Vancouver wedding photographer.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, because it doesn't match and stuff. But I would like to have more Vancouver weddings. How would somebody better use SEO to maximize on opportunities like that?
Totally. Yeah. And I'll give some simple stuff because there is definitely some more extensive sort of content strategy that can be used for a relocation for sure. But even just, okay, so say, you're in a new area, a big thing you can do is like a styled shoot at a venue you'd want to shoot at. So you have those photos. I just really recommend don't go after, so say, okay, I want to shoot at Cooper's Hall, I'm not going to use, the keyword's not going to be Cooper's Hall styled shoot because no one's searching that. But I can absolutely put Cooper's Hall wedding and then in the body text, explain that it was a bit of a styled shoot or whatnot. And you could get that to rank. You could also do informational blog posts. So you could write a blog post like, just go to the venue on the outside, maybe take a couple photos, maybe ask the venue owner if you can take maybe a couple interior photos and do a blog post on like 5 reasons to get married at Cooper's Hall, why you should get married at Cooper's Hall. Because those informational blog posts, Google really, really likes. And because that's providing great content to its user, and your potential client would love that too. They'd love to see a photographer's perspective on their venue. And I do think a lot of potential clients are searching their own venue and looking at other photos that have been taken there and looking for information on it. So like, for example, I did an informational blog post just on, there's a lot of, and you have to know your area. So Portland has a lot of weddings in our parks. We have like Cathedral Park that's very beautiful, Hoyt Arboretum. So I wrote a blog post, Best Portland Parks for Weddings. Wow. And it's on page 1 for just Portland Park weddings. And I put the cost, the amount of the capacity, and just what I liked about it as a photographer, and just put the top ones in there to target that. So you can and that's where it's really fun, is you can break into new areas or new venues or, different sort of things if you haven't shot on the coast before. And it's not that even being on page 1 of those doesn't guarantee that you do it once and there's your success. You just keep doing that over and over and over. And you create this web, that you're getting, some traffic from those, and then hopefully, an inquiry and a booking. But if you get enough of those, sort of fishing lines thrown out, then you can break into a new area and change things up. And that's why another reason I like SEO over Instagram because you can throw in the hashtags and all that. But with SEO, it's much more targeted. You can control it and you can actually see, much clearer successes of like, oh, of course, this person is inquiring and they're getting married at Cooper's Hall. They must have found my Cooper's Hall blog post.
Very cool. Okay, so is SEO fun because it plays to your gaming side?
I think so. That's exactly it. I have some pretty like techie SEO programs and stuff I use to like monitor my students, and I can actually see their ranking progress. And we can use we can spy on their competitors and check out their domain authority and some things about their website, so we can see what it's going to take to get them to page one. Oh, it's totally rooted in it's a game. It's literally a game to me completely, and I think that's why I actually stopped. I've pulled back and I stopped playing video games because this video game makes me money. Instead of just hours and hours, and they can be fun, but I'm like, well, I'm getting the same level of like fun and enjoyment from this sort of strategy, but I can see again this ROI. I'm like, oh cool, I put hours into this strategy game, and and there comes clients and money, so that makes it really that's what we want.
Sweet. Yeah, perfect. Okay, I'm going to put on that hat again and say, why should I bother doing SEO if I can just put up a Google ad, because that's making Google happy? I have some money to invest in a Google ad, and then it just save all this time and don't have to ever do any blog posts.
So I would ask everyone in the audience, how often do your eyes scroll past the ads on Google?
Totally.
Always. This is statistically proven. Actually, I have the number, but it's something like, it's a huge percentage of people don't even visually see the ads because we're so inundated with ads that I think we've started to like block them out. Because I scroll past, there'll even be now ads that start in the middle of YouTube videos, and I just like turn my phone away because I don't like being forced into something. So I definitely think that there is some value to Google ads for some industries. And they can, it's one I haven't dove into. I've really been on just the organic side. But yeah, it's not, I think, and one thing too is when your ad is done, then your ad is done. You have to continually pay for it. Whereas with organic, it's efforts. And then especially once you really start building your website and digging in, when you get those page one spots, like those take some effort to get, and you kind of lock yourself there. As long as you're monitoring it and continuing to update your website and refresh your content, you kind of get your claws in there, and then that's free. And I like that. So yeah, that's what I would say to ads, because I can't even remember the last time my eyes even stopped and looked at the ads on the top or the bottom of Google.
They're like banner ads to me, like the old school banners that we used to get. Right. We always used to just like glaze past them as well.
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly.
And last one, I'm just super busy and I can only do one post every month. How often should I be doing blog posts and putting out content without being too spammy?
Well, I wouldn't say putting out content is spammy. I've definitely blogged things and not necessarily just like blasted it all over, social media. And you should never be spammy with your content. It should always be good content. Yeah. And honestly, if you're blogging once a month as a wedding photographer, you're doing pretty well.
Winning at life.
That's actually doing pretty well. I tell my students, like, if you can get something up once or twice a month that's quality, and I'm way more about quality than quantity of blog posts. It's not about quantity of blog posts. Each one of those blog posts, they don't like build on top of each other. Each one is an arrow, and it needs to be sharpened. It needs to look good. And that's what's going to, get it to really hit its target, which is that page one spot.
I love that analogy. That really helps as well when you're like putting it together a blog post. So just like make sure it's more focused as opposed to like, oh, I've ticked all these boxes. It mentions the venue. It's like, has links to other content. And I've mentioned a few key, terms, but knowing that, okay, you're funneling or targeting people in a direction that can lead to future sales or bookings or whatever that is a much better way to think about it. At least for me.
Yeah. And for me too. And I just like looking at it from much more overhead perspective than like, oh, I'm just doing the right things. Am I ? I think that's what a lot of people are like, well, I've been told these things and those are great, but then all the pieces come together and are much easier to understand. You're actually able to analyze and strategize on your own beyond the rules when you understand the targeting and the strategy and goals. And then all those things make sense. A lot of people use things like Yoast is great, the little green lights and stuff. My website has just always been Squarespace. I like Squarespace. I've never had Yoast. But then you can be your own Yoast. And even better, because Yoast, I mean, you could put in any sort of keyword. It may even not be a great keyword to rank for, but if you use it, well, and follow the little rules, it'll give you green lights, and you're getting green lights for something that's like, even if you get on page 1 for it, it's not a good keyword. Like your clients aren't searching it. So I like that. I'm much less about, yes, there's some rules, but that's kind of that's the fine part. But if you can get some strategy and stuff going, then everything really, really comes together.
Is SEO a long game though? I always thought of it as you've just got to put in the work, and maybe in a year or two, it will pay dividends. Like you're not going to suddenly put up a blog post for a venue that you've shot at, or a venue that you want to shoot at because you've done a stylized shoot. You're not going to see the benefit of that in a week.
You might.
Okay. How?
So it all depends on the current competition around keywords.
Okay.
So for example, it took me probably a good solid 2 years of work to rank for my city keywords, so Portland wedding photographer and the variations around that. And it took me, maybe took me a week or two to get on the first page for like motorcycle elopement. And even though, and yes, one is it's just much higher traffic. And so a lot more people are going after it. So it's harder to compete with the other websites that are doing it. So if the websites on page 1 are older than yours, if they have higher domain authority, more link backs, if they're just a more established website, it's going to be much harder to gain those first page spots. But as you continue to grow your website, it becomes even easier and easier. And I think I can get on page 1 too very quickly because my website has some built domain authority and is an established website. So Google has already recognized me as a good candidate for page 1 spots. But I even have some newer students for my SEO masterclass, not the ARC one, but the one that I do through SEO is Fun. And she lives in a more medium city, but there actually happens to be a lot of weddings there because it's wine country. And we were able to get her on page 1 for her city keyword in a month. And she doesn't have domain authority built. It's a newer website. So it just happened to be, it was a lower competition keyword, but still there's going to be a lot of weddings there just because it is wine country. So I thought it was still worthwhile to go after. So so that's kind of the answer there. Is sometimes it is definitely a long con overall, because to me, it's not just getting on page 1 for this one thing. It's like shooting out, again, those arrows and kind of building that web. But you can get some short-term wins and some long-term ones. It's really going to depend on the competition around the keyword.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think what I love about it mostly is that Google is like always improving it and making better content, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And also Google isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It's not like,
we don't have to trust it with Zuckerberg, like the Google's, and it's really not going anywhere for a long foreseeable future. They've created a wonderful index, and it's something that I trust. Whereas some others, I don't as much. So
Fair play. Okay, cool. Can you tell me more about this motorcycle elopement? That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So it was just it was a couple in Joshua Tree, and just this really rad couple. They both rode Harleys, and they live in Joshua Tree. And they're very into nature. She's going to school for it, and they had just a little elopement, just the two of them. And I took some photos. Me and my friend Jamie worked on it together. And we just had their motorcycles in Joshua Tree. And it was really simple and great. The bride's hands are tattooed, it was just really, really cool. So it's probably one of the favorite things I've shot. And so hopefully getting that to rank. And I like that keyword too, because if you're, having a motorcycle elopement, you're most likely a certain kind of person. I love tattooed, very different looking individuals to photograph. So that's why I like that keyword. So even though it doesn't get a lot of traffic, I'm like, someone that searches it though, I think they'll like this. So yeah.
Did you get to ride any of the Harleys?
Oh, I should not be trusted with that. Yeah, no, those things were gigantic. A true Harley is really heavy. So I haven't yet. I'll be going to Vietnam in January, and so I hope to at least maybe try, kind of scooter motorbikes, sort of thing. So we'll see if I don't kill myself.
Please don't. Are you? Is that the first time that you're going to Vietnam?
Yeah, first time. Yep.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I'm mostly going for. Yeah, I'm not hired. Just going for. Actually, I had treated my boyfriend for his birthday, so I found a Scott's Cheap Flights. If anyone isn't using Scott's Cheap Flights, oh my gosh. they're great. And also you'll just be like, I want to buy these tickets to Vietnam. I think I got them round trip for $480. One stop,
Cool.
great airline, it's got cheap flights. It's like my addiction. So yeah. And then it's like, why not?
Nice.
It's off season. We're not doing anything. I'm like, want to go for your birthday? Let's go. So we're really excited.
Sweet. And then I saw that you're also going to Sayulita in Mexico, Denmark and Sweden are on the horizon, the UK. Can you tell us a bit about those adventures that are coming up?
Sure. Yeah. Sayulita is a market, a little surf town in Mexico that I've been trying to break into for a few years. So I now shoot maybe 2 to 4 weddings in my off season there. The Northwest on season is very short because it rains in wonderful Portland. That's why it's green. But it makes our wedding season very short. So I had to try. I'm like, okay, well, where could I break into that's not too bad of a flight that has an opposite wedding season? One of them was California because they do fall weddings and spring weddings, so that I was able to extend my season. And then the on season in Sayulita is the winter, which is also great because I get to go kind of escape the rain for a minute and sip margaritas on the beach. Denmark and Sweden is actually for my boyfriend's family reunion. He's Danish and his family owns a dairy farm in Sweden. So I'm going to get shown off to the Europeans as per se. So that should be a really fun trip. And then Wales is actually teaching at Snap Photo Festival. That's Laura Babb's conference. She's also been a friend for years. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, shout out to Laura Babbs in the UK, just doing amazing things.
Awesome. What an awesome photographer and businesswoman. I was so excited to be asked to speak at Snap. I've kind of had my eye on it for a while I really wanted to attend. I feel like all the conferences I'm actually teaching at, I'm like, no, but I really want to attend. Like I'm so excited to learn new things. And they're all with ARC and Snap. And then I also teach at Let's Go. I mean, these are all just, top notch learning opportunities. So yeah, I'm excited to head over there and dance like a silly person like I do. I'm not good at dancing. So, multiple countries are going to have to witness my bad dancing this year.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we have ARC coming up in a few weeks and we have live karaoke. So I don't know about your singing skills, but not that matters because everyone, it's just such a fun, it's one of my favorite things at ARC. And if there's a tune that you want to perform, then we have a full live band right behind you to share your skills with.
Well, I think my problem is I only know how to rap. And so usually when I do karaoke, it's like Nicki Minaj.
You can rap. Jacob did Kendrick last year, and really? I did Regulate with by Nate Dogg and Warren G with Sarah Rogers. So we totally you can rap.
I wasn't sure if a band
do whatever you want.
That works with with bands.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so we'll sign you up, right?
Gosh darn it!
Nice. Cool. Can you tell us, obviously your presentation is about SEO and your masterclass is about SEO. For anyone who's interested in attending the experience or the masterclasses are actually open to the public as well, could you tell us a bit more about each of these, the presentation and the workshop?
So they are similar in that, of course, they're both SEO focused and the presentation is going to be much more, it's going to be not broad strokes. There will be some really, really good specifics. But the difference between that and the masterclass, where you're actually going to bring your laptop and a blog post draft, and we're going to work on it together. So the masterclass is a great fit for people that maybe need a little more hands-on help with SEO, but you'll be able to, by the end of the masterclass, your website should be pretty thoroughly optimized, and you should know going forward how to blog properly. And what's cool is the masterclass will fit in well with the presentation because there are some things in the masterclass that won't be covered there that will be covered in the presentation. And that's going to be just more of an understanding of SEO and how we can strategize and target as, creatives and photographers. Because SEO is really, really, it's similar, but it can be really, really different in each industry, of course. Any true just marketing strategy is very different and specific to the industry. So I like that those two will work together. I also really believe it works well for learning retention to also hear the concepts again and in a little bit of a different light. The masterclass that I do through SEO is Fun is done in 2 meetings for that reason, so that we can go over it again and see if it makes sense, because SEO, it can take some time to really absorb. So the main presentation are going to be some really broad strokes, but also really specific things that are just killing your website or killing your SEO and how to remedy those. And then, the masterclass is focused in. It's okay, let's dig in and actually go through step by step, very specifically, how to optimize a website and blog post, because that can't quite be taught on in, an overarching presentation. So, yeah,
Definitely.
that's kind of what they're about.
Sweet. Okay, cool. And I know you love like guerrilla type marketing tactics. If for somebody listening to this, do you have like one thing that maybe we could start doing so that we can improve our reach and our exposure to the sort of clients that we want to get?
Yeah, I'm gonna save a couple goodies for the presentation. So people come to ARC. I don't want to give out too much.
Of course,
I will give one. One thing I've started doing, and it's got me on a lot of preferred lists with vendors, or especially with venues. I really like getting on preferred lists of venues I want to shoot. I even have people who inquire. They're like, "Oh, I'm getting married at actually this other venue downtown, but I saw you on this list, which was my first venue I looked at, but I still wanted to hire you." So it's like it can kind of go a little further reach. But I always send sneak peeks to vendors. So you send your sneak peeks to your client. I mean, not everybody does, but I do. So I have these 30 photos, and I'll include ones too. Like if I look and I'm like, oh, okay, there's a florist, there's a venue, maybe there's a bakery, like I'll include one of the cake and of the florals and of the venue space, because I know that's good for them to use for their Instagram and their social media. And I think they're really, really surprised to get an email from a photographer within a few days of the wedding with photos they can use. And that's gotten me on so many preferred lists, because they just know that they're not going to have to hound me for photos. And while they don't own our photos, I just personally leave them being really open-handed with that stuff. And of course, it's also an SEO tactic, because when they put my photos on their website, they credit my website and give me a link. And Google likes when other websites, especially websites that relate to yours, like other wedding vendors, link to your site. It shows more credibility, and builds your domain authority. So there's definitely I'm not doing it. I'm not like open-handed, just like, I don't know, frolicking, here's photos for everyone. Like everything has also, everything has that dual, like I am doing it because it is a smart business decision, but it was just like a random idea I had. I was like, why don't I just send these to the vendors too and pay a little bit of attention to the vendors that are on this list. And even if there was one too that I like really clicked with, or we met, or I just love their style, I'll send them a little custom thing. So, and this has worked really well for me, even though I seem I can seem pretty outgoing. I am a little more introverted, and I'm not really the one that's going to like go to networking events and like talk with people. I try, but it's really not my strength. So I instead try to be like generous and just kind of like cheer people on, like, wow, I loved your florals, and just kind of do that. And that's really helped. But it's a few steps removed through like email or social media, where it's a little more comfortable for my personality type. But yeah, that just got me on a new downtown venue that I love. I just found out I'm on their preferred list. I'm like, sweet, that's great. So yeah, that's definitely a tip, and it takes almost no work. So
yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Catalina. I can't wait to finally meet you in person and to hear your presentation at ARC in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for your time, and I'll look forward to seeing you rap your tunes on the ARC stage in a few weeks.
Oh gosh. Okay. I look forward to meeting you, and I'm so excited.
Awesome, guys. How was that? I absolutely love Catalina and all that she shared. I'm so glad that we got to find out really what was happening with that mannequin. Thank you, Jacob Loafman, for that tip. If you want to learn more about SEO, then I highly suggest checking out the masterclasses at The Experience, and even hearing Catalina's presentation alongside many others. The Experience is only a few weeks away, and if you really want to up your game and be around a very supportive and incredible community, then I highly encourage you to check it out. However, these podcasts will always continue. I'm really looking forward to season 2 of the Art Creative Podcast. Once again, I am Sachin Khona, your host on the show, and thank you so much for being here. I've really enjoyed these episodes with each of our keynote speakers, and I've been feeling so much more comfortable as a host and leaning into the challenges that come with being a podcast host, but also I'm learning loads, and I'm very excited to action, especially today, things that we've learned from the show. So once again, thank you for your time, and tune in again next week for another episode of the ARC Creative Podcast. Hugs and high fives. Peace.